What's up, and welcome to the Parker's Couch. I'm glad that you have found our channel. If this is your first time here, please take a minute to stop, like, subscribe, check out all the other videos we have. Check out the Parker's Couch podcast. The podcast is going to be going through a new name situation. This is the Parker's Couch channel, and we will have various podcasts on different topics. I'm going to get in today, and one of the podcasts I'm going to be releasing of Who Got Beef, and I'm gonna just be covering a bunch of different cases, whether it's court cases, whether it's reality TV, just people who are feuding, because we love a good feud. And I have been covering the P. Diddy case, and I've covered a few of the court cases, but I kind of trailed off of it a little bit. But this one did catch my attention again, so I wanted to come back to you guys and share a little bit from this one. I wanted to cover this one because, number one, I've always been a fan of Don. I love Diddy Kane, the Making the Band series. You know, even though Diddy was batshit crazy, it was entertaining TV. So that whole era, I definitely love. And a lot of the commentary has been surrounded around Cassie and what she witnessed, and I guess some of the other people who've been named in the lawsuit. But I wanted to find out more about what she actually had to say about what she went through the hands of Diddy. And the court case itself is only 55 pages. If you followed me on this channel, you know that we have read through some cases that were much longer. I'm not sure how many parts I'm going to break this up into yet. I'm going to try to, make sure you can digest it in smaller bites, so it's not just one long rip that you have to sit there and listen to. It might end up being 4 parts, 3 or 4 parts, but we will see when we get there. But we like to read through the case and have a little bit of commentary whenever I feel the need to say something extra about what is being said. So, with all that said, once again, like, subscribe, and let's get to it, y'all. Let's pull up this court case. Plaintiff Dawn Angelique Richard, Miss Richard, by and through her attorneys, the Bloom Firm, and IP Legal Studio LLC, bring this action against defendants. Miss Richard alleges upon knowledge concerning her own experience and upon information and belief as to all other matters. Okay, so they always start with this preliminary statement. And so we're going to get into that first. And it goes, Dawn Angelique Richard, known professionally as Dawn Richard, is an American musician, singer, songwriter, and performer. She gained widespread recognition as a member of the girl group Diddy Kane, formed by defendant Sean Combs. Mr. Combs and Mr. Combs, and later transitioned into a key member of Mr. Combs' band Diddy, Dirty Money. Defendant Sean Combs, a once celebrated hip hop mogul, popularly known by the stage's names as Puff Daddy, Puffy, P. Diddy, Diddy, we know all the things, or Love, skyrocketed to fame in the late 1990s and became a powerful and enduring figure in the music and entertainment industry. In 1998, Mr. Combs explained the origins of his stage name in a USA Today interview. His name was Puff because he had a temper and was known to huff and puff when he was angry. You know what? I don't know if I ever knew that. That's why he went by the name Puffy, but it definitely made sense. And we know he definitely has a temper. Okay. Over the decades following his rise to fame, Mr. Combs' star-studded, larger-than-life persona overshadowed his vicious temper and pervasive acts of violence directed towards those in his inner circle, specifically women. Mr. Combs' namesake temper frequently manifested in physical violence. Mr. Combs regularly hurled objects in fits of rage, often throwing items such as mobile phones, laptops, food, and studio equipment across the room or at people. On numerous occasions, Miss Richard witnessed Mr. Combs brutally beat his girlfriend, Miss Cassandra Cassie Ventura. His persistent abuse included choking and strangling Miss Ventura, striking her with his hands and with objects, slapping her, punching her, and throwing items at her, including a scalding hot pan. Wow. All right, that's a few more things that I wasn't aware of. On many occasions, Miss Richard tried to intervene, offering Miss Ventura support and encouragement. to leave Mr. Combs. Each time Mr. Combs leaned off each time Mr. Combs learned of her efforts to help Miss Ventura, he became enraged, threatening Miss Richards' life with statements such as, "You want to die today? I make NIGGAS go missing, and I end people." Now, that's some bold claims. Now, with some of the earlier lawsuits, all the suggestions of Diddy and his run-ins, and famously Tupac and all these other things about how he has people to handle stuff for him. So this is doubling down on that. Compounding Mr. Combs' violent acts and death threats, he flagrantly exploited Miss Richards' musical talent as a singer and writer while withholding her rightful earnings. Now, we've known about that. Stealing her copyrighted works and subjecting her to years of inhumane working conditions, which included groping, assault, and false imprisonment, among other violations. For nearly a decade, Mr. Combs manipulated Miss Richard with mantras that submission to his depraved demands was necessary for career advancement, instilling in her the belief that such abuse and exploitation were required for female artists to succeed in the music industry. It wasn't until Miss Ventura's bravery and coming forward that Miss Richard realized her own personal suffering was tied to the many years of abuse by Mr. Combs that had become normalized for her. As more women courageously come forward, the plaintiff has been empowered by this collective strength and now adds her voice to the growing chorus of victims, bravely sharing their harrowing stories. Together, they seek justice and stand in solidarity as the latest victim of the Me Too movement in the music industry. Now, I'm glad they did have this part there at the end, because I know a lot of the popular thing to say is a why now? Why are you doing this now? Are you just trying to jump on the bandwagon, or something here? And I think this definitely does make sense when you think about patterns of abuse, and whenever you suffer those for so long, and especially in the industry, and back then too, in those 90s, early 2000s, people thought they had to go through abuse to make it. It's almost like a Greek society whenever, hazing and all that stuff was normalized. It was just kind of, I guess, known that you have to go through a sort of hazing and this is what it takes. And to manipulate your brain that way, your own self-conscious, and just to allow these things to happen, and then it becomes normalized. Like, it just totally made sense. And I could see her sitting there probably thinking, how hard it is to come out with something at this point, because you're going to catch the ridicule for those saying like, "Oh, now you want to talk, or now you want to come out, blah blah blah." You're going to get that, and the why you wait so long, and you just jumping on the bandwagon. You're going to get all that hate, and then to have to relive this abuse, alleged abuse, I must say, as it is a court allegation. To have to, my mouth getting dry, y'all. Sorry about that. You see me wiping. I should have had some water right here with me. But but to have to relive that again in your mind and your body, your soul, to go through that takes a lot. So that's a lot of courage. So I commend any victim or alleged victim that does come forward. I give them a lot of props, because that's a lot to relive and go through. All right, so let's pick it back up. And the next part is going to be talking about the parties involved. Okay, so Miss Dawn Angelique Richard is a resident of the state of California and was employed by Defendants Remote Productions Inc., New Remote Productions Inc., Bad Boy Entertainment LLC, Bad Boy Records LLC, Bad Boy Entertainment Holdings LLC, Bad Boy Production Holdings Inc., Bad Boy Brooks Holdings Inc., the Sean Combs Music Inc., Sean Combs Capital LLC, and Combs Enterprises LLC, herein after collectively Bad Boy Records from 2005 until 2012. At all relevant times herein, Miss Richard met the definition of an employee of defended Bad Boys Records and related entities. At all relevant times herein, Miss Richard was a resident of the state of New York. Defendant Sean Combs, upon information and belief, resides within the state of California. At all the relevant times herein, Mr. Combs met the definition of an employer of Ms. Richard under all relevant statutes. Defendant Harvey Pierre, upon information and belief, resides within the state of New Jersey. At all the times relevant herein, defendant Harvey Pierre was the president of Bad Boy Records, of Bad Boy Entertainment and Bad Boy Records in New York, and met the definition of an employer of Miss Richard under all relevant statutes. Defendants Remote Productions Inc. and New Remote Productions Inc. are Delaware corporations and television production companies which, upon information and belief, were created by Mr. Combs to produce Making the Band in New York and in California. At all the relevant times herein, RPI and NRPI employed Miss Richard under all relevant statutes. Defendant the Nordlinger Group LLC is a finance firm with its principal place of business in New York, and on information and belief is and was employed by other named defendants herein to pay an account to Ms. Richard pursuant to her employment with other named defendants. On information and belief, the Nordlinger Group LLC formed November 15th LLC for the purposes of dispersing funds relative to Making the Band. Upon information and belief, Defendant Daddy's House Recording Studio Inc. is a New York corporation and a music recording studio owned by the defendant Bad Boys Records in New York at all relevant times. Herein, Miss Richard was an employee required to work at said studio. And so now they're just continuing to go through all those named folks. We won't go through all that, but it's just making sure that they were within all these times or the alleged allegations, all these people named are complying in the acts, and they are going to be listed in this lawsuit and stuff right here. So yes, it's a lot of parties, y'all. It's a lot. Um, we mentioned this one in 25. It goes Defendant Janice Combs Publishing Inc. is a music publishing administrator in a New York corporation who at all relevant times held or holds the publishing copyrights of Miss Richard, pursuant to her employment with other defendants herein under all relevant statutes. So even going for Miss Combs, their publishing company there. Let's see, defendants on these songs. We got Love Records, we got Epic Records, we have all that. The next part just covers the jurisdiction and the venue for all this taking place. We skip that and let's get to the allegations. So, factual allegations. This is where the juice starts coming in, where we get the meat and the potatoes of what's happening. So, factual allegations. So, number one, Miss Richard is selected to be in Mr. Combs' all-female musical group, Danity Kane, after competing on MTV's Making the Band. Yes, we all know that. In or around 2004, Miss Richard was selected to participate in season 3 of MTV Network's reality television show, Making the Band. The show centered around the formation and development of a new musical group under the mentorship of Mr. Combs. The contestants would compete and be chosen by Mr. Combs to form a band, which could go on to create albums and perform. And yes, it was like I said in the beginning, incredible entertainment. Dawn appeared in season 3 and season 4 of Making the Band, in which first aired in 2005, and in season 5 of Making His Band, which aired in 2009. So Dawn was a mainstay and stuff there. Out of thousands of contestants, Miss Richard, along with approximately 12 other women, were selected to participate in season 3. So they're laying down the groundworks of how she got into season 3 and the filming there. We're going to get to some of the juice that was going on. Danity Kane released a self-titled debut album. That was in August 2006. And his second album, Welcome to the Dollhouse, in March 2008. They really could have been it. If people could just do right, like this group, they could have been really successful. Like they were already successful, but that success could have carried on so far. Like they were good. Danny Kane's first album sold over 4 million copies. Damages to Miss Richard for unpaid salaries are estimated at 1 million. Hmm, interesting. Wow. All right. Danny Kane's second album, Welcome to the Dollhouse, sold over 2 million copies. Damages to Miss Richard for unpaid salaries and royalties are estimated at 500,000. Damages on unpaid wages for touring on over 100 dates for Miss Richard with Danny Kane are estimated at 1.8 million. So that's the total there. If you're keeping up, what we got 15 plus it with quick math in my head, three carried one. What's that? 3.3? 3,300,000. Look like they're saying in charges and damages there. Okay. Mr. Combs fired bandmate Aubrey O'Day. We all remember that. And Juanita D. Woods. Yep. From Danny Kane on live television at the height of his fame in 2008, which resulted in Danny Kane being disbanded in 2009. So the first factual allegations are surrounding the money. Now, the second allegations here, Miss Richard first encounters Mr. Combs' aggressive, intimidating behavior and animus toward women. All right. So this is whenever she first noticed all this. So during the auditions and on the set of Making the Band, Mr. Combs projected an aura of superiority, wealth, and power. Mr. Combs regularly wore sunglasses and avoided looking the female contestants in the eyes, contributing to an atmosphere of uncertainty and intimidation. During auditions, Mr. Combs spoke to the female contestants in a hostile, condescending manner, disparaging gender based remarks such as calling them fat, ugly, bitches, and hoes. Miss Richard felt threatened and intimidated Mr. Combs' blatant disdain for the young women like herself who were excited for the opportunity to be on his show. Once the band was made, Mr. Combs' contempt for women was readily apparent as he continued to display aggressive and hostile behavior towards Miss Richard and all her all-female Danny Kane bandmates. Mr. Combs regularly referred to the five women as bitches and hoes and denigrated their physical appearance. By way of example, Mr. Combs stated that Miss Richard was too skinny and needed to do something about her face. Do something about her face? He got the nerve. The nerve is always the ones that look like that be talking to others. Mm, 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 mm. But on one occasion, in or around 2005, during the first season of Making the Band 3, Miss Richard observed Mr. Combs, ex-partner and mother of three children, Kim Porter, leaving Mr. Combs' recording studio in tears with visible facial injuries, including a lacerated lip. Realizing that Mr. Combs was capable of committing acts of violence against women, caused Miss Richard to feel deep apprehension and fear that Mr. Combs could one day physically harm her. Miss Richard was present when Mr. Combs was introduced to Cassie for the first time in or around 2006. The moment Mr. Combs first saw Miss Ventura, his demeanor noticeably shifted. Mr. Combs positioned himself directly in the front of Miss Ventura's seat, invading her personal space and fixated on her with an intense, unyielding stare, isolating her from the other people in the room, including Miss Ventura's then boyfriend, producer Ryan Leslie. Coincidentally, the first meeting between Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura was the first time that Miss Richard was in Mr. Combs' presence without a camera crew filming. Observing Mr. Combs behave in such an intimidating, predatory manner the first time they were off camera made Miss Richard feel deeply apprehensive and afraid of him. Subsequently, Miss Ventura ended her relationship with Mr. Leslie and began dating Mr. Combs, who would become violent and abusive towards her. Now, how this dude, I'm just picturing that. You're used to a certain behavior that's caught on camera, but now it's off camera for the first time, and you see this man just literally being a stalker. But this is like your manager, your gateway into music, your money man, like all that is probably going through your mind at the same time and battling those things. So we're not going to go back and judge, but just looking at the situation just as a whole and what's going on probably through your mind. How crazy is that though? To see him really just single her out like that and purposefully like intimidate kind of her into a relationship that kind of way already from I, just the dynamics of that is just wow. Like this dude has some major um you know that four-letter word. All right, let's continue here. In part 3, let's share some more. For the majority, all right, so this one is Danny Kane's sexual harassment, inhumane treatment, and denial of basic needs by Mr. Combs. And I probably shared this one, and then I stop this video and continue the rest of the factual allegations on the next feed. For the majority of Miss Richards' tenure as a member of Danny Kane and Diddy Dirty Money, Mr. Combs required her to remain at his various residences and studios in New York, Los Angeles, Florida, and New Jersey for activities such as recording, rehearsing, dressing, preparing costumes, and exercising. Throughout the productions of Making the Band 3 and 4, Mr. Combs deprived Miss Richard and her Danny Kane bandmates of basic needs such as adequate food and sleep. When Miss Richard on her Danny Kane or her Danny Kane bandmates requested meals or rest, Mr. Combs refused and chastised them with the derogatory comments like "You bitches don't want this" or "Y'all are not hungry enough," and "I'm paying you bitches to work." This demeaning behavior gradually undermined Miss Richards' confidence and contributed significantly to her growing feelings of insecurity and fear of reprisal from Mr. Combs. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs would regularly be awake for prolonged periods of time because he was high on drugs. During these periods, Mr. Combs demanded continuous access to Miss Richard and her Danny Kane bandmates, often forcing them to record and rehearse for stretches of 36 to 48 hours without breaks. Oh, that's definite slavery. Forced to choose between eating and sleeping, Miss Richard lost a significant amount of weight, weighing approximately 100 pounds at a height of 5'4". Miss Richard began to normalize these extreme conditions and perceive them as standard requirements for her participation in Danny Kane. Mr. Combs regularly sent his associates to wake Miss Richard and her Danny Kane bandmates in the overnight hours so he could watch them rehearse. The regularity of these disturbances led Miss Richard to adapt by sleeping in a sitting position, fully dressed and with makeup on, heightening her anxiety over time. This abnormal sleeping arrangement came to feel routine, further normalizing Mr. Combs' invasive demands. In addition to exhausting rehearsals, Mr. Combs required Miss Richard and her bandmates to participate in intense workouts with a personal trainer. On one occasion, while running on the beach, Miss Richard became so dehydrated that she vomited. Instead of offering medical assistance, MTV Network's camera crew filmed the incident, contributing to her acceptance of such treatment as part of her professional life. Not MTV sitting there being in on it, but of course a TV production studio or yes, a TV production crew would be in on that. It's all about capturing what's on TV. The unrelenting and rigorous schedule of rehearsals, performance, and near constant filming that Mr. Combs imposed caused Miss Richard to experience extreme weight loss, dehydration, fatigue, and painful rashes from the microphone packs she was required to wear on her back. These conditions intensified Miss Richards' feelings of powerlessness as she increasingly viewed them as part of her professional reality and feared the consequences of resistance. In a further exertion of power and dominance, Mr. Combs insisted on holding meetings while dressed only in his underwear, On one occasion in 2008, at his Miami residence, Mr. Combs emailed Miss Richard, directing her to meet him in the living room. When she arrived, he was wearing only his underwear. Miss Richard asked Mr. Combs to put on clothes, but he refused, stating, "This is my effing house." Mr. Combs then conducted a meeting lasting approximately an hour while dressed in his underwear, causing Miss Richard to feel violated and embarrassed, and amplifying her feelings of powerlessness. Following the official Danny Kane breakup in early 2009, if infatuated by Mr. Combs, Miss Richard experienced significant financial hardship. With no there we go, with no perspective, opportunities for employment within the entertainment field. Miss Richard spent several months traveling from Baltimore to Daddy's house recording studio in New York without pay or allocated budget. Mr. Combs promised that Miss Richard's compositions would result in payment. Mm, mhm, of license fees and royalties pursuant to her contract with Bad Boy Records. However, no such compensation was ever reported or paid to Miss Richard. Damages relative to these continuing copyright infringements would be proved at trial. All right. Um, wow. So that's a lot in that, just with how he acted as far as just Danny Kane as a group. You know, if you watch Making a Band, it is not beyond the realm of believability that Diddy put them through horrendous working conditions. We saw that on the show. So just imagine what you did not see and what was going on behind the scenes, and how often that 36 to 48 hours straight without a break. Like, I mean, I think that, gosh, that's like, who is that sick to put somebody through that, allegedly? That's crazy. And the weight loss, the just doing meetings in your underwear, it's just strange. I don't understand why it would have to be this way. All right, let's, if you want to continue on for some more of the facts and going through this court case, go ahead and click on part 2, and we're going to keep it going. All right, see you on the other side. Lord, I'm going to get me some water.